So the holidays are coming up, right?
Yeah, I'm excited for presents and stuff.
Oh yeah? What do you think you're gonna get?
I want a MacBook for college, but my mom said it's too expensive.
Too expensive. That's like nothing for like royalty.
Yeah, I know. They get like insane presents.
Yeah, like the daughters in King Lear.
What's that?
It's a play written by Shakespeare.
Who's that?
William Shakespeare was an English poet, playwright, and actor. He was born on the 26th of April, 1564, in Stratford-upon-Avon. His father was a successful local businessman, and his mother was the daughter of a landowner. He is often called England's national poet and nicknamed the Bard of Avon. He wrote about 38 plays, 154 sonnets, and 2 long narrative poems, along with a few other verses, of which the authorship of some is uncertain. Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway at the age of 18. She was 8 years his senior. They had 3 children, Susanna and twins Hamnet and Judith. After his marriage, information about his life became very rare, but he is thought to have spent most of his time in London writing and performing in plays. Between 1885 and 1592, he began a successful career in London as an actor, writer, and part owner of a playing company called the Lord Chamberlain's Men, later known as the King's Men. Shakespeare produced most of his work between 1589 and 1613. His early plays were mainly comedies and histories, and these works remain regarded as some of the best work produced in these genres. He then wrote mainly tragedies until about 1608, including Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth, considered some of his finest works in the English language. In his last phase, he wrote tragic comedies, also known as romances, and collaborated with other playwrights. Around 1613, at the age of 49, he retired to Stratford, where he died 3 years later. Few records of Shakespeare's private life survived. He died on the 23rd of April, 1616, at the age of 52. He died within a month of signing his will, a document which he begins by describing himself as perfect health.
In the following scene to be performed, which is a selection from Act 1, Scene 1, the daughters of King Lear are tested to divide the land of their elder.
There are 4 main characters throughout the play King Lear, the first of which being King Lear. King Lear is the aging king of Britain and father of 3 daughters, Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. He wants to divide his kingdom into 3 parts, 1 for each daughter. Next is Goneril. Goneril is Lear's eldest daughter and is wed to the Duke of Albany. Goneril is immoral and jealous. She also protests King Lear and his authority. Regan is the middle child of King Lear. She is married to the Duke of Cornwall. Regan is cold-blooded and threatening. Regan and Goneril are similar in many ways. Cordelia is the youngest of 3 daughters. Cordelia is disowned by King Lear for refusing to say that she loved him. However, she remains loyal towards King Lear despite his inhumanity towards her.
Before our scene, in the play King Lear, it begins with 2 noblemen discussing how the king is going to divide his kingdom. As one of the 2 men, Gloucester, speaks to the other Kent, he introduces his son, Edmund. Gloucester explains to Kent how Edmund is a bastard being raised away from home, but also how he nevertheless loves his son dearly. Such foreshadowing will later draw a parallel to the king and his kin. A selection beginning in Act 1, Scene 1, line 38.
Meantime, we shall express our darker purpose. Give me the map there. Now that we have divided in our 3 kingdoms, and 'tis our fast intent, to shake all cares and business from our age, conferring them on younger strengths, while we, unburthened, call toward death, our son of Cornwall, and you, our no less loving son of Albany. We have this hour a constant, will to publish, our daughter's several dowers, that future strife may be prevented now. The princess, France of Burgundy, great rivals, and our youngest daughter's love. Long in our court have made their amorous sojourn, and here are to be answered. Tell me, my daughters, since now we will divest us both in rule, interest of territory, cares of state, which of you shall we doth say love us most? That we our largest bounty may extend, where nature doth with merit challenge, Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than words can really matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty, beyond what can be valued rich or rare, no less than life, with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as a child ever loved or father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all matter of so much, I love you.
What shall Cordelia do? Love and be silent.
Of all these bounds, even from this line to this, with shadowy forest, and with champagnes rich, with plenteous rivers and wide-skirted meads, we make thee lady, to thine and Albany's issue. Be this perpetual, what says our second daughter, our dearest Regan, wife to Cornwall, speak.
Sir, I am made of the self-same metal that my sister is, and prize me at her worth. In my true heart, I find she names my very deed of love, only she comes too short that I profess. Myself an enemy to all other joys, which the most precious square of sense possesses, and I find that I alone felicitate in your dear highness's love.
Then poor Cordelia, and yet not so, since I am sure my love's more ponderous than my tongue.
To thee and thine, hereditary ever, remain this ample third of our fair kingdom, no less in space, validity, and pleasure, than that conferred on Goneril. Now, our joy, although the last, not least, to whose young love, the vines of France and milk of Burgundy, strive to be interest. What can you say to draw a third more opulent than your sisters? Speak.
Nothing, my lord.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again.
Unhappy that I am, I cannot heap my heart into my mouth. I love you, your majesty, according to my bond, no more nor less.
How? How, Cordelia? Mend your speech a little, lest it may mar your fortunes.
Good my lord, you have begot me, bred me, loved me. I return those duties back as are right fit, obey you, love you, and most honor you. Why have my sisters husbands if they say they love you all? When I shall wed happily, that lord whose hand might take my plight shall carry half my love with him, half my care and duty. Sure, I shall marry like my sisters, but never to love my father all.
But goes thy heart with this?
Aye, good my lord.
So young and so untender.
So young and so true.
Let it be so. Thy truth, then, by thy dower. For, by the sacred radiance of the sun, the mysteries of Hecate and the night, by all the operation of the orbs, from whom we do exist and cease to be. Here I disclaim all my paternal care, propinquity, and property of blood, and as a stranger to my heart and me, hold thee from this forever, the barbarous Scythian. Or he that makes his generation messes, to gorge his appetite, shall to my bosom be as well neighbored, pitied, and relieved, as thou, my sometime daughter.
In this scene performed, the king and ruler of Britain, Lear, is in his throne room with his 3 daughters in courtship, where he announces his plan to divide the kingdom due to his old age. His intentions are to relieve himself of his current responsibilities with the government and relax in his later years with his family. To create appraisal for himself and in competition for his value, he commands each daughter to argue which loves him the most. He promises to give the greatest share of land to that daughter. Lear's scheming older daughters, both Goneril and Regan, respond to his assessment with extravagant flattery, explaining their so-called overblown terms that they love him more than anything other in the world. In the contrary, the youngest and most favored daughter, Cordelia, refuses to speak. In line 90 of this scene, she is pressed by the king and answers how she cannot heave her heart into her mouth, otherwise meaning that she loves him just as much as any other daughter might love her father, the average amount. She also schemes back to her sisters and claims that they wouldn't have husbands if they loved their father as much as they say. As she leaves in his response, the king falls into anger, disowns Cordelia from the family, and she divides her share of the kingdom between the other 2 sisters. Following this election, Lear quickly realizes his poorly made decision. Goneril and Regan, irritated by their sister's lack of participation, begin to undermine Lear's remaining authority. Consumed by his own ego and unable to believe that his daughters are betraying him, Lear slowly goes insane. He flees to his daughters' houses and ends up wandering about during a great thunderstorm. He is accompanied along with his fool and by Kent, one of the first noblemen, now a loyal friend in disguise. Meanwhile, the other nobleman, Gloucester, experiences his own serving of family problems. His illegitimate son, Edmund, tricks him into believing that his legitimate son, Edgar, is trying to kill him through rage and greed. Fleeing the manhunt that his father has set out for him, Edgar disguises himself as a crazy beggar and calls himself Poor Tom. This scenario draws parallels between the daughters and Lear. When Gloucester realizes that Lear's daughters have turned against their father, he helps Lear in spite of the danger. Regan and her husband, Cornwall, discover him helping Lear, accuse him of treason, blind him, and turn him to wander about the countryside. He is then led by his disguised son Edgar, or Poor Tom, to where Lear has been brought. There, a French army lands upon the invasion, led by Cordelia in an effort to save her father. Edmund apparently becomes romantically entangled with both Regan and Goneril. Goneril's husband, Albany, is sympathetic towards Lear, so Goneril and Edmund conspire to kill him. In the peak of the play, Edgar kills Edmund. We hear of the death of Gloucester. Goneril poisons Regan out of jealousy over Edmund, only then to kill herself of treachery. Edmund's betrayal of Cordelia leads to her execution, and Lear dies of grief at Cordelia's passing. Leaving only Albany, Edgar, and the elderly Kent to take care of the country under a cloud of sorrow and regret, the true tragedy is the unknown ruler that is left behind. Read King Lear to further discover the subplots and more definitive tragedies that occur within the play. The importance of our chosen and performed selection is described furthermore throughout Shakespeare's entire work of King Lear. The greed that the two older daughters possess drives them to succumb into false answers of their father's test. The blindness of Lear begins with dysfunctional focus on being praised rather than praising the truth of his daughters, which then drives him into insanity when he disowns his once favorite daughter Cordelia. This scene is the source of setup that represents the primary themes of the play.
Fintan O'Toole, a columnist from the Irish Times, said that King Lear was one of the most bleak of Shakespeare's tragedies. He went on to say by saying, "The play is filled with many themes, including blindness and appearance versus reality." Both Gloucester and King Lear are blind. However, King Lear is symbolically blind, while Gloucester is physically blind. They are both blind of the intentions of their children, praising the devious ones and punishing the loyal one. They are also blind to their responsibilities. It is also apparent that Lear was blind to the desires of his people during his reign, as demonstrated by his remorse over not taking care of the less fortunate. Another theme displayed throughout the play is appearance versus reality. This can be seen with Regan and Goneril appearing loving towards their father, but in reality are brutal and cold-blooded. The theme of appearance versus reality is a common theme occurring in many other Shakespearean plays, such as Hamlet, Macbeth, and Othello. These plays are all considered tragedies and have similar features such as seeing a fatal flaw or external pressures. Fintan O'Toole went on to say that the ending of the play was heartbreaking. The ending was so heartbreaking that up until the mid-1800s, the play was performed with a happy ending.
In relation to other works that we are familiar with, King Lear seems to be one of Shakespeare's greater and more commonly recognized tragedies, along with Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. It is an extraordinarily moving play that speaks to a period in one's life of which we recognize with confused interpretation. With morbidity, we encounter the effects of avarice and vexation through the many royalty that have behaved immorally. In comparison to the real world and other Shakespearean plays, we face death as a grim destination that many characters arrive at due to unethical actions. The play Macbeth, for example, is much alike King Lear in the common themes of betrayal, dishonesty, and strife. Another relation towards real life with King Lear is the theme of solemnity. In the play, we see how old age is looked upon as a time to reap the rewards of due benefits and tempestuous competition, rather than of a lifetime of work and service. Although we may not agree with the unforgivable acts that some of our more mischievous characters portray, their lessons are well learned and applicable to our lives.